Allowing NBC News to ask you some important questions.
You're most welcome in Damascus.
A few weeks ago, you told lawmakers here that you would retake every inch of Syria. The US State Department called that delusional. You're a long way from winning this war, aren't you? Never mind retaking every inch of Syria.
Actually, the Syrian army has made a lot of advancement recently, and that's the goal of any army or any government. I don't think the statement of the United States relevant. It doesn't reflect any respect to the international law, to the Charter of the United Nations. It doesn't reflect respect of the sovereignty of a country, that it had the right to take control of its land.
How long do you think this will take you to win this war?
You're talking about something that's related to many factors. The most important factors: how long are the supporters of those terrorists are going to keep supporting them, especially Turkey and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, with the endorsement of some Western countries, including the United States. If you don't have that support, it won't take more than a few months.
More than a few months.
Yeah.
You see, I've been here 10 times and I've heard your governors say it will take a month to retake Homs, it will take 6 months to retake somewhere else. It always takes longer than that. So realistically, this will take years, won't it?
That's why I said that depends on how much support the terrorists are going to have. How much recruitment are you going to have in Turkey with the Saudi money to have more terrorists coming to Syria? Their aim is to prolong the war. So they can prolong it if they want. And they've already succeeded in that. So that depends on the question. If you're talking about how much it's going to take as only Syrian conflict, isolated conflict, this is where it won't take more than a few months. But if it's not isolated, as it's the case today, with the interference of many regional and international powers, it will going to take a long time. And no one had the answer that you have, because nobody knows how the war is going to develop.
A year ago, the war was going quite differently. You made a speech in which you said you were short of troops. You had to give up some areas reluctantly. What changed after that was that Russia entered the war. That's the real reason this war is turning, isn't it? That Russia is on your side.
Definitely, the Russian support of the Syrian army has tipped the scales against the terrorists.
It's the crucial factor.
It is definitely. At the same time, Turkey and Saudi Arabia has sent more troops since that Russian legal intervention started. But in spite of that, it was the crucial factor, as you just mentioned.
You owe President Putin a lot.
Everyone who stood beside us, Russian, Iranian, and even the Chinese stood, but each one in its own way, whether political, military, or economical. Because it's not one factor. You cannot only talk about the firepower or the human resources. It's multi-factor issue. All those countries supported Syria, beside other countries supported to a lesser degree.
Has President Putin demanded anything of you? What's the deal?
When he wanted to intervene, he didn't ask for anything.
Nothing.
For a simple reason. First of all, politics built on values. This is very important. The second thing, their interest is common interest with us now, because they are fighting the same terrorists that they should fight in Russia. We are fighting the terrorists that could be fighting in Europe, in the United States, anywhere else in the world. But the difference between President Putin and the other Western officials, that he could see that clearly, while the other officials in Europe or in the West in general couldn't see that. That's why his intervention is based on values and at the same time based on the interest of the Russian people.
Do you speak much with him?
When there's something to speak about, of course we speak, or through officials.
How often, for example, this year have you spoken with him?
I didn't count them, but many times. We spoke many times.
And how would you describe your relationship with him?
Very frank, very honest, mutual respect.
But he has demanded nothing of you. Is that the case?
Nothing at all.
Because the suspicion is that Russia, maybe working in concert with the United States, and Secretary of State Kerry is meeting Vladimir Putin Thursday in Moscow. The suspicion is that they are coming to some sort of deal that might be bad news for you.
First of all, regarding the first part, if he wanted to ask me for something, he would ask me to fight the terrorists, because this is where his interest as president and as a country, I mean Russia, lies. Second, regarding that allegation from time to time that the Russian met with the American and they discussed something about the Syrian issue, in order to give the impression that they are deciding what's going to happen in Syria. Many times, the Russian officials many times said clearly that the Syrian issue is related to the Syrian people. And yesterday, Minister Lavrov said that clearly, said we cannot sit with the American to define what the Syrian wants to do. This is a Syrian issue. Only the Syrian people can define the future of their country and how to solve their problem. The role of Russia and the United States to offer the atmosphere, the international atmosphere, to protect the Syrian from any intervention. The problem in that regard that the Russians are honest, the Americans didn't deliver anything in that regard. But this is not to take the decision about what we have to do as Syrians.
So just to be clear, neither Foreign Secretary Lavrov nor President Putin has ever talked to you about political transition, about a day when you would leave power. That's never come up.
Never, because as I said, this is related to the Syrian people. Only the Syrian people define who's going to be the president, when to come and when to go. They never said a single word regarding this.
And you're not worried in the least about Secretary Kerry meeting Vladimir Putin and coming to an understanding in which you may have to leave power?
No, for one reason, because their politics, I mean the Russian politics, is not based on making deals. It's based on values. And that's why you don't see any achievement between them and the American, because different principle. The American politics based on making deals regardless of the values, which is not the case for the Russian.
But of course, it's not just Russia that's bombing your enemies, it's the United States. Do you welcome American airstrikes against ISIS?
No, because it's not legal. First of all, it's not legal.
It's not legal for Russia to do it, is it?
No, they are invited legally and formally by the Syrian government. It's the right of any government to invite any other country to help in any issue. So they are legal in Syria, while the Americans are not legal with their allies. Of course, all of them are not legal. This is first. Second, since the Russian intervention, the terrorism has been, let's say, regressing, while before that, and during the American illegal intervention with their allies, ISIS was expanding and the terrorism was expanding and taking over new areas in Syria. They're not serious. So I cannot say I welcome the unseriousness and to be in Syria illegal.
Thousands of missions, hundreds of airstrikes. The United States is not being serious.
The question is not how many strikes, what the achievement. That's the question. The reality is telling that since the beginning of the American airstrikes, the terrorism has been expanding and prevailing, not vice versa. It's only shrinked when the Russians intervened. So this is reality. We have to talk about facts. It's not only about the pro forma action that they've been taking.
So American airstrikes are ineffective and counterproductive?
Yes, it is counterproductive in somehow. When the terrorism is growing, it is counterproductive. That's correct.
Whose fault is that? Is that a military fault, or is President Obama simply not being, let's say, ruthless enough?
Yeah. No, first of all, it's not about being ruthless. It's about being genuine. It's about the real intentions. It's about being serious. It's about having the will. The United States doesn't have the will to defeat the terrorists. It had the will to control them and to use them as a card like they did in Afghanistan. That will reflected on the military aspect of the issue. If you want to compare more than 120 or 30 Russians airstrike in few areas in Syria compared to 10 or 12 American allies airstrikes in Syria and Iraq, it means militarily nothing. But that military ineffectiveness is a reflection of the political will.
There was a political will, as you put it, to remove you from power. That was the will of Washington. That seems to have changed. Have you any idea why the United States has changed its mind, apparently, about your future?
No, because the problem with the American officials, they say something and they mask their intentions. They go in different way. They say something, they say the opposite. They say something, they do something different. So you cannot tell what their real intentions. What I'm sure about that, they don't have good intentions towards Syria. Maybe they are making tactics, maneuvers, but they haven't changed their intention, as I believe.
President Obama wanted you out. He's leaving office soon, and you're staying. Did you win?
No, it's not between me and him. It's between me and whoever wants to destroy this country, and mainly the terrorists within Syria now. This is where we can win as Syrians if we can get rid of those terrorists, if we can restore the stability in Syria. This is where we win. Otherwise, we cannot talk about winning. That's true they didn't succeed, but if they don't succeed in their plans, if it went into a fiasco, doesn't mean we win the war. So I have to be realistic and precise about choosing the terms in that regard.
But one of the president's key aims, which was to remove you from power, has clearly failed. Or do you believe it's failed?
Yeah, I said he's failed, but doesn't mean I win, because for him the war is to remove me. For me, the war not to stay in my position. For me, the war is to restore Syria. So yeah, you're talking about two different wars. For me, I'm not fighting my war. I'm not fighting the war that the president should stay. My war is to protect Syria. I don't care about if I stay or not, as long as the Syrians don't want me to be in my position. For me, I don't care about what the other presidents want. I care about what the Syrian wants. If they want me to stay, I'm going to stay. If they want me to leave, I'm going to leave. So it's different, completely different thing.
Do you feel the United States has fundamentally misunderstood your war with ISIS, with what you might call a common enemy?
Again, it's not common enemy, because for us we are genuine in fighting not only ISIS and al-Nusra and every affiliated to al-Qaeda organization within Syria. They have the same, all of them are terrorists. So if you want to talk not about ISIS, about the terrorist groups, we wanted to get rid of the terrorists, we wanted to defeat those terrorists, while the United States wanted to manage those groups in order to topple the government in Syria. So you cannot talk about common interests unless they really want to fight those terrorists and to defeat them. And they didn't do that. They've been in Iraq in 2006. They didn't try to defeat them.
But America is very genuine about fighting ISIS. ISIS is a threat to the American homeland. How can you say America is not serious about
because
fighting ISIS?
ISIS has been set up in Iraq in 2006, while the United States was in Iraq, not Syria was in Iraq. So it was growing under the supervision of the American authority in Iraq, and they didn't do anything to fight ISIS at that time. So why to fight it now? And they don't fight it now. It's been expanding under the supervision of the American airplanes. And they could have seen the ISIS using the oil field and exporting oil to Turkey. And they didn't try to attack any convoy of ISIS. How could they be against ISIS? They cannot see, they don't see. How the Russians could have seen it from the first day and started attacking those convoys. Actually, the Russian intervention unmasked the American intentions regarding ISIS and the other terrorist groups, of course.
3 years ago, President Obama made a threat against you. He drew a red line and then withdrew from that and did not attack you. What do you feel about that? Is that the sign of a weak president?
Yeah, that's the problem. In the United States, they've been promoting for years now, only a good president is ruthless or tough, that who should go to war. This is the definition. Otherwise, he's going to be a weak president, which is not true. Actually, for the American administration, since the Second World War, they have a share in stoking the fire and conflicts in every part of this world. And as the time goes by, those administrations are becoming more and more pyromaniac. The difference now between those administrations is only about the mean, not about the goal. One of them sent his own troops, like Bush. The other one is using surrogate mercenaries. The third one using proxy, and so on. But the core is the same. Nothing has changed.
To go back to that moment 3 years ago, was that the sign of a weak United States and a weak president?
Yeah, because if you want to talk about the core, which is the war, attacking Syria, they've been attacking Syria through proxies. They didn't fight ISIS. They didn't make any pressure on Turkey or Saudi Arabia in order to tell them stop sending money and personnel and every logistic support to that terrorist. They could have done so. They didn't. So actually, they are waging war, but in different way. They didn't send their troops. They didn't attack with missiles. But the same mercenary, that's what I meant. I mean, the same.
Did it surprise you that they didn't attack?
No, it wasn't a surprise, but I think what they are doing now had the same effect. So between mercenaries and between missiles, this one could be more effective for them. So no, I couldn't say that I was surprised.
You're a leader. By drawing a red line and not following through, has that damaged America's credibility, not just in the Middle East, but in the world?
But this credibility hasn't ever existed for us, at least since the early 70s, to be frank with you. Since we restored our relation with the United States in 1974, we never saw any administration has real credibility in every issue we dealt with. They never had it. So I cannot say that it harmed. Many of their allies, they don't believe them. I think the American credibility, not because of what you've mentioned, because of their politics in general, their mainstream politics are at an all-time low. That's how we see it.
An all-time low in terms of its credibility in the world?
Generally, yeah, and regarding the politics in general, not regarding Syria. Yeah.
Do you welcome the end of President Obama's term of office?
It means nothing for us, because if you change administration but you change politics, it means nothing. So it's about the politics. And in Syria, we never bet on any president coming or any president going. We never bet, because what they say in their campaign is different from what they practice after they became elected.
You've talked about presidents being the same, never changing their policy, but there will be a new president in the United States next year.
Yeah.
Do you hope for a new relationship? Do you believe anything like that is possible?
Yeah, of course, we always hope that next president would be much wiser than the previous one, less pyromaniac, as I said, less militaristic, adventurist president. That's what we hope. But we never saw. Somehow, I mean, the difference is very marginal. So we keep hoping, but we don't bet on that hope.
So there will be a new president. There are two main choices. One of them is Donald Trump. What do you know of Mr. Trump?
Nothing, just what I heard in the media and during the campaign. That's what I say. We don't have to waste our time hearing what they say in their campaign. They're going to change after they become elected, and this is where we have to start evaluating the president after the campaign, not during the campaign.
And you're here in Damascus. What are you hearing in the media about Mr. Trump?
The conflict between the American. But we don't pay much attention to it. I mean, even this rhetorics between the different, let's say, nominees, it's changing during the campaign. So what you hear today is not relevant tomorrow. So we cannot build our politics on day-to-day politics.
But you're following this election?
Not really. Because as I said, you don't follow anything that you cannot consider as connected to the reality yet. It's only connected to the reality when they are in office. So far, it's only rhetoric. We don't have to waste our time with rhetoric.
Simply rhetoric. So, for example, talking about Mr. Trump, anything Mr. Trump says, you wouldn't necessarily believe that would be the policy of a President Trump.
No, I'm not whether Trump or Clinton or anyone. I'm talking about in general. It's not about the names. It's a principle for every president, American president, in every campaign.
He's made very few comments about Syria or the Middle East, but he's described you as a bad guy. Does that worry you?
That's his opinion. No, it's a personal opinion. He doesn't have to see me as a good guy. The question for me, do the Syrians see me as good guy or bad guy? Not American person or president or nominee. I don't care about it. It's not part of my political map, let's say.
One of the things he's said and been very clear about is that he would be much tougher on ISIS. You would welcome that, wouldn't you? Because you just said President Obama isn't serious.
You don't have to be tougher. This word doesn't have any meaning in reality, in real life, in this region. You have to fight ISIS in different ways. ISIS not only fighters, you have to attack them with the strongest bomb or missile. It's not like this. The issue of terrorism is very complicated. It's related to the ideology. How can you be tough against the ideology of ISIS? That's the question. How can you tough regarding their economy? How they offer money and donations? How can you deal with that?
I think Mr. Trump is talking about military toughness. He wants
It's not enough. You have to be smart. It's not enough to be tough. First of all, you have to have the will. You have to be genuine. Then you have to be smart. Then you can be tough. and being tough and being military active, this is important, but this is the last option when you fulfill the first criteria.
From what you know of Mr. Trump, is he smart enough?
I don't know him. When I sit with him face to face, I can judge him. But I only look at the person on the TV. You know, on the TV you can manipulate everything. You can make, you can rehearse. You can prepare yourself. So that's not.
Do you like what you see on TV of Mr. Trump?
I don't follow the American election, as I said, because we don't bet on it. We don't follow it. It means
he seems to respect President Putin. Does that give you hope that maybe he's a man you could do business with?
If he's genuine, I think he's saying the right thing, because every person on earth, whether agree or disagree with President Putin, he should respect him, because he's respectable. He respects himself, and he respects the other, respect his values, respect the interest of his own people, and he's honest and genuine. So how can you respect someone with those descriptions? If he's genuine, I think he's correct. That's what I can say.
Mr. Trump has also made comments about Muslims and not allowing Muslims into the United States. Did that anger you, upset you?
Yeah, especially in Syria, as a melting pot country made of many, many religions and sects and ethnicities, we think this diversity is richness, not the opposite. It's the way the government and the way the influential forces in the society that made it a problem or a conflict. If you can have all those people living in one society with real integration, with harmony, this is richness. This is for the interest of any society, including the United States.
So Mr. Trump should not have made those comments about Muslims?
Anyone shouldn't make any discriminative rhetoric in any country. I don't believe in this kind of rhetoric, of course.
Mr. Trump has no experience in foreign policy. Does that worry you?
Who had this experience before? Obama or George Bush or Clinton before? No one of them had any experience. This is the problem with the United States. You have to look for statesmen who has real experience in politics for years, not because to have position in Congress for a few years or Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example. That doesn't mean you have the experience. The experience in states should be much, much longer. So we don't think that most of the presidents in the United States were well versed in politics.
So a man with no experience in foreign policy in the White House is not necessarily dangerous in your view?
If anyone who doesn't have experience in any position, a White House or in the presidential palace in Syria or in another country, of course it's dangerous for the country, generally. Of course, the United States as a great power, it could have more impacts on the rest of the world. But it's not only about the experience. At the end, when you have institutions, they can help. It's about the intention. Is it going to be with good experience, but with militaristic intentions, destruction intentions, and so on? So you have to talk about many factors. It's not enough to talk only about the experience.
Someone with more experience in foreign affairs is Hillary Clinton. She is known to you in one sense. What would the consequences be if Hillary Clinton wins the election?
Again, the same. I have to repeat the same answer. It depends on her politics. What politics is she going to adopt? Is she going to prove that she's tough and take the United States to another war or to make escalations? This is why it's going to be bad for everyone, including the United States. If it's going to go in another direction, that will be good. Again, we focus more about the intentions before talking about the experience. The experience is very important, but the intention is the most crucial thing for any president. So can you ask them the question, can they tell genuinely the American people and the rest of the world what their real intentions about their politics? Are they going to make escalation, or we're going to see more entente around the world?
Well, one difference between them clearly is that Mrs. Clinton is determined, it seems, still to get rid of you. At least that's her stated position. Mr. Trump says he's focusing on ISIS, leave you alone. That's a clear difference between the two. Hillary Clinton, well, I'll ask you the question. Does Hillary Clinton represent more of a threat to you than Donald Trump?
No, because since the beginning of this crisis, we heard the same motto, Assad must go, many times from nearly every Western official in different levels, whether leader or foreign official or any other official. We never cared about it. We never. So you cannot talk about this is a threat. This is interfering in our internal issues. We're not going to respond to. As long as I have the support of the Syrian people, I don't care about whoever talks, including the President of the United States himself, anyone. So it's the same for us. That's why I say Clinton and Trump and what Obama said, for me, nothing. We don't put it on the political map. We don't waste our time with those rhetorics or even demands.
But if Hillary Clinton as president establishes a no-fly zone over your territory, over northern Syria, for example, that makes a huge difference.
Of course, this is where we can talk about threat. That's why I said the policy is the crucial thing for us. When they started supporting the terrorists with such projects or plan or step, this is where you can have more chaos in the world. That's another question. Do the United States have interest in having more chaos around the world, or the United States have more interest in having stability around the world? That's another question. Of course, the United States can create chaos. They've been creating chaos for the last 50, 60 years around the world. It's not something new. Are they going to make it more worse, more prevailing? That's another question. But it's not about me. It's not about the president. It's about the whole situation in the world, because you cannot separate the situation in Syria from the situation in the Middle East. And when the Middle East is not stable, the world cannot be stable.
Let me just probe you about how far you might want a new relationship with the United States. ISIS is headquartered in your country, in Raqqa. If you knew that ISIS was about to attack the United States, would you warn America?
As principle, yes, because they may attack civilians, and I cannot blame the innocents in the United States for the bad intentions of their official. This is not correct. And as I said many times, I don't consider the United States as direct enemy, as they don't occupy my land. But at the same time, this is, let's say, not realistic for one reason, because there's no relation between us and the United States. This kind of information or cooperation needs security cooperation based on political cooperation. We have neither. So you cannot have it anyway.
I've spoken to your foreign minister, Dr. Faisal Mekdad, many times, and he's described to me the danger of Syria and its crisis exploding, not just across the Middle East, but across the world, and that has clearly happened.
Yeah.
As ISIS is driven back or broken, is there a danger that their fighters scatter? Is there a danger that as you defeat ISIS, the United States becomes more vulnerable to terrorism?
No, if we defeat ISIS, we are helping the rest of the world, because those terrorists coming from more than 100 countries around the world, including the Western countries, if they are defeated, they'll go back with more experience, more fanatism, and more extremism, and they're going to attack in those countries. So if we defeat them here, we are helping every other country, including the United States.
But ISIS fighters may leave Raqqa, and as we've seen with terrorist attacks in Europe, they come to France, they come to Belgium, they could come to the United States as well and attack. That is a real risk, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I said if we defeat terrorism, in the meaning they cannot go back, we are helping them. If they leave, if they escape, if you have this terrorism, this is where you can start exporting those terrorists to Europe, as what happened in France recently. So what you said is correct. That's what I mean. If we defeat them here and they cannot go back, this is where we help the others. If they go back, there will be a danger to the rest of the world.
Like any war, there are two sides. Your forces have been accused of doing some terrible things. I've been here many times and I've seen some of the terrible things as a result of your forces, airstrikes, bombardments, and so on. Do you believe one day you will face an international court?
First of all, you have to do your job as president. When you are attacked by terrorists, as country, you have to defend your country, and that's my job according to the Constitution. So I'm doing my job, and I'm going to keep doing it no matter what I'm going to face. Let's be clear about this. Defending the country cannot be balanced with the personal future of president, whether he's going to face criminal court or anything like that, or to face death. Doesn't matter. If you don't want to face all these things, leave that position and give it to someone else.
But the reason people are saying you should face a war crimes tribunal is that you are clearly using any means whatsoever. I mean, I know you don't agree that there is such a thing as a barrel bomb.
Yeah.
Never mind the metal. The charge is that you are using indiscriminate force, indiscriminate weapons in civilian areas. That's true, isn't it?
First of all, those people, do they have any criteria that what they mean that you should use with the terrorists? They don't have. So this is irrelevant. It has no meaning from legal point of view and from realistic point of view. Second, if you talk about indiscriminate, no army would use indiscriminate armament in such a situation where there's nearly intermingle between the two sides.
With respect, Mr. President, I've seen a bomb thrown from a helicopter. That was indiscriminate.
Let's say technically, this is not the issue, whether to throw it from helicopter or from aircraft. This is not the issue. The more important thing, if you want to talk about precise, let's say we are using precise armament like the United States, using the drones and the highest precision missiles in Afghanistan. How many terrorists they've killed so far? They've killed many folds of civilians and innocents.
Even if that's true, that doesn't make anything that you do right.
No. I mean, first of all, the kind of armament that you are using is not related to what you've mentioned. It's not whether you use the high precision or less precise armament. There's no such criteria. This is only part of the media campaign recently. I'm talking now legally. So we have the right.
With respect, it's not just a media campaign. The United Nations, as you well know, has spoken about this. Human rights groups have spoken about this. Not just indiscriminate use of weapons against civilians, but the UN spoke this week about the problems in Aleppo, in Daraya, which is just very close to here, of the use of starvation as a weapon of war. Sieges. That's going on right now close to us, isn't it?
We're going to talk about the siege. Now, regarding the armament, the only thing that the government cannot use in any war is the armament that's been banned by the international law. Any other armament that you've been using against the terrorism, it's your right. So it's our right to use any armament to defeat the terrorists.
And you know there's a charge that you have used chemical weapons, which you deny.
We didn't. So far, it's been 3 years, no one had offered any evidence regarding this, only allegations.
There's plenty of evidence, but you reject them.
No, there's no evidence actually. No, only pictures on the internet.
Photographic, scientific, eyewitness.
Nothing. You have delegation coming from the International Organization of Chemical Weapons. They came to Syria and they didn't have any evidence. They collected everything, samples and everything to offer evidence. They couldn't. There's no evidence. So we didn't use it, and there's no logic in using it.
Let's talk about the methods your forces are using close to here, which is cutting off an area and besieging it. And there are thousands of civilians very close to here who are starving.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that?
Let's presume you are saying what you're saying is correct. Let's presume that. Now you're talking about encircled or besieged by the army for years now, not for a month, for years. They don't have food and every basics because the government doesn't allow them. But at the same time, they've been fighting for 2 years and they've been shelling us with mortars and killing civilians from their area. It means, according to this narrative, that we are allowing them to have armaments, but we don't allow them to have food. Is that realistic?
That's what the UN says. The UN says, for example, in Madaya, it's only managed to get 4 aid convoys in all these years.
How do we prevent them from having food and we don't prevent them from having armaments to kill us? What's the logic in this? This is contradiction. We either besiege everything or we allow everything. This is first. Second, the proof that this is not correct, that you have every video about the convoys coming from the United Nations to reach those areas. Otherwise, how could they survive for years if they are under besiege? It's been years. They've been talking about the same narrative, reiterated for years now, but people are still alive. How could they live without food?
As you know, targeting civilians in a war is a war crime. And just recently, the family of Marie Colvin, an American journalist, has launched a suit in the United States charging you and your government with deliberately targeting and killing her. You know Marie Colvin. She was a friend of mine.
Journalist,
Did your forces target Marie Colvin and her colleagues with an intention to kill her?
No, very simply. First of all, the army forces didn't know that Marie Colvin existed somewhere, because before that we hadn't known about Marie Colvin. So it's a war, and she came illegally to Syria. She worked with the terrorists, and because she came illegally, she's being responsible of everything that befall on her. This is first. Second,
she's responsible for her own death.
She came illegally to Syria. We can responsible of everyone within our country when he came legally to Syria. She came illegally, and she went with the terrorists. We didn't send her anywhere. We don't know anything about her.
As you know, that doesn't explain why missiles hit the house that she was in Homs.
No, nobody knows if she killed by missile, or which missile, and where did the missile came from, or how. No one has any evidence. This is just allegations, because it's a conflict area. It's a war. You know about crossfire. When you caught in a crossfire somewhere, you cannot tell who killed who. So these are allegations. Second, we had hundreds of journalists came to Syria legally and illegally, and they covered for the terrorists, not for the government, and we didn't kill them. So why to single out this person in order to kill him? There's no logic. This is second. Third, tens of journalists working for the government and support the government has been killed. Did we kill them? We didn't. So this is war. Have you heard about good war? I don't think anyone have heard about good war. It's a war. You always have casualties. You always have innocent people being killed by any means, and no one can tell how.
You see, the impression you give, Mr. President, is of a man who feels he bears no responsibility for the terrible things that are done in his name to the Syrian people. You have an air of, oh, well, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. You only bear responsibility of the decision that you take. You don't bear responsibility of your decision that you didn't take.
But some of the decisions you've taken have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people.
Like?
Attacking certain areas, launching campaigns, airstrikes, the use of certain weapons.
The only two decisions that we've taken since the beginning of the crisis to defend our country against the terrorists, and that's correct decision. The second one is to make dialogue with everyone. We made dialogue with everyone, including some terrorist groups who wanted to give up their armaments, and we made it. We were very flexible. We didn't take any decision to attack any area that doesn't include terrorists, or where terrorists don't shell the other cities adjacent to them.
Do you ever see pictures, photographs, videos of children, for example, in rebel-held areas? And I wonder if you have seen those photographs. What do you feel? Sorrow, regret, nothing?
My question, how could you verify that those children that you saw on the internet are in their area?
You see, there you go again, Mr. President. An answer like that simply reinforces people's view that you're evading responsibility, that actually you don't care for the people on the other side that your forces kill.
That question could be answered if you answer that question. How can you blame now Bush for the 1 million Iraqi dead since the war in Iraq in 2003?
I'm not talking about President Bush. I am here to ask you.
I'm talking about the principle now.
Yes.
It's about the principle, the same principle. So he attacked sovereign country while I defend my country. If you want to use one standard, is one thing. If you want to do a double standard, that's another thing.
You're still not giving me the impression that actually you care very much.
Well, I talk to American audience, so there must be analogy between the two things, because it's about the logic that you use to explain something. It's not only about my answer. He attacked sovereign country while we are defending our country. He killed Iraqi people on their land. We are defending mainly against terrorists who are coming from different places in that world. So this is our right. While to talk about the clean war where there's no casualty, no civilians, no innocent people to be killed, that doesn't exist. No one could make it. No war in the world.
Is this how you explain the war, for example, to your children at the breakfast table? I'm sure they're very interested.
I'm going to talk about the reality, about the fact. While to talk about children being killed, children of who, where, how? Yeah, you are talking about propaganda and about media campaign and about sometimes fake pictures on the internet. We cannot talk but about the facts. We have to talk about the facts. I cannot talk about allegations.
Have you ever cried about what's happened to Syria?
Crying doesn't mean you are a good man. And that doesn't mean you have a lot of passion. It's about the passion, it's within your heart. It's not about your eyes, it's not about the tears. This is first. Second, as a president, it's about what you're going to do, not about how you're going to feel. How are you going to protect the Syrians when you have bad incident, and you have it every day? Do you keep crying every day, or you keep working? My question is, how can I help whenever I have bad event or incident? I ask myself, how can I protect the other Syrians from having the same problem?
What are you going to do next? Are you just going to go on and on and on? You and your father have been in power for 46 years. Is that right?
No, it's not right, because he's the president, I'm another president. So it's not right. The description is not right at all. He was elected by the Syrian people. I was elected after he died. He didn't put me in any position. So you cannot connect. I'm president and he's president. I've been in power for 16 years, not for 45 years.
You've been in power for 16 years. My question is, are you going to go on and on and on?
In my position, you have to ask the Syrian people. If they don't want me, I have to leave right away, today. If they want me, I have to stay. It depends on them. I mean, if I want to stay, again their will, I cannot produce, I cannot succeed. And I don't think I have the intention not to succeed.
How do you think history will remember you?
How I hope the history will remember me. I cannot foretell. I'm not a fortune teller. I hope that the history will see me as the man who protected his country from the terrorism and from the intervention, and saved its sovereignty and the integrity of its land.
Because you know what the first draft of history is saying, that you're a brutal dictator. You're a man with blood on your hands, more blood on your hands than even on your father.
No, again, I will draw that example. If you have a doctor who cut the head because of a gangrene to save the patient, you don't say he's a brutal doctor. He's doing his job in order to save the rest of the body. So when you protect your country from the terrorists, and you kill terrorists and you defeat terrorists, you're not brutal, you are a patriot. That's how you look at yourself, and that's how the people want to look at you.
And that's how you see yourself as a patriot?
I cannot be objective about looking at myself. The most important thing, how the Syrians look at me. That's the real and objective opinion, not my opinion. I cannot be objective about myself.